What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. I so enjoy making these reaction videos. Today, I thought it would be fun to react to the therapy scenes from the show Monk, which is a little bit of a throwback. I just looked it up and it ran from 2002 to 2009, and I watched the first couple of seasons back when I was in high school. The premise of the show is basically that this main character, Monk, is a private detective who also suffers from some pretty severe obsessive compulsive disorder, and you get to see him sort of navigate how his mental health kind of both disrupts and enhances his ability to do his job well. All of that said, let's go ahead and react to some of the best therapy scenes from the show Monk.
It's been 4 years since you lost Trudy. That's a long time. Have you ever considered dating again?
I've thought about thinking about it.
Adrian?
Some pebble or something has been driving me crazy all day. I bet. Yes, there it is.
That's it?
Sensitive feet.
They have such a good way of kind of couching something so serious in a comedic format. I mean, that moment that pebble comes out of the shoe and it's like, wait, for real? Here his therapist is seeming very gentle and kind and definitely patient with Monk's clear kind of distraction from the very serious topic at hand. That it is curious that the moment his therapist asks about dating again after his wife passed, he's taking off his shoe, trying to find this pebble because it's just bugging him that much. Now, it's clear from the way that these two are interacting that this is not the very first therapy session between Monk and his therapist. If you see a client rip off their shoe in the middle of probably a really intense conversation and just fiddle with it instead of really focusing on what you're talking about, you might say, okay, hold on, let's pause the conversation. Are you okay? What's going on? Tell me about it. And the therapist in this scene does a really good job of just staying patient with it, attending to him, even just like that little moment of getting that little tray and saying, here you go, you can put the pebble in here. There's a sense of care that's communicated in these little moments while also being able to kind of stick by needing to press into some of the topics that are making it difficult for Monk to be able to fully live his life.
How's the case coming?
Bad. I have a suspect. She doesn't even deny she did it, but I can't prove a thing.
Well, how's that make you feel?
Angry.
Classic therapist question. And yes, how does that make you feel is a question I use all the time. What can you say? Some of the stereotypes are true.
Okay, so what do you do when you feel angry?
I get mad.
Adrian, you've had tough cases before. You usually don't get this rattled. What's going on with you and Sharona?
She's still not talking to me. She says I don't get it.
Well, I think maybe she's right.
What don't I get? I don't understand.
I can't tell you that.
That's interesting. So the therapist perceives something like, okay, you're not acting like you typically would in a similar situation. There's clearly something else going on beyond just what's happening in this moment. He digs into something going on with a woman in Monk's life, clearly seems to kind of know where he's going because he hits the nail on the head. But it's also very interesting to me that he says, well, I think she's right. That's not my particular therapeutic style to say that anyone else in somebody's life, like just straight up, I think they're right. Let's see how Monk reacts to the therapist being so upfront about that perception.
I don't understand.
I can't tell you that.
You mean, you know, but you won't tell me?
Adrian, you're going to have to figure this one out for yourself.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understand this. I have a problem. You know the answer.
That's right.
I'm paying you.
That's right.
But you won't tell me.
That's right.
This is definitely a therapist stereotype of like, we know, but I'm not going to tell you. But I love how Monk is able to just relay the stereotype back so clearly. There are times where a client will ask me a direct question that I will say, I'm going to answer your question in a second, but first, I want to hear what you think I think the answer is. And then kind of work through that. But I give them the heads up like, hey, I'm going to give you the answer in a second, but there's something to work through here real quick. Let's stay with it for a second. I'll get back to you. And then, of course, then I give it back. I don't know. I wonder, do other therapists do that? To say, I'm not really going to tell you what I think is good for you. You have to go figure it out, but I already know the answer. There's a power hierarchy there. Maybe other people do this, and it's like a super valid therapeutic technique, but Marie doesn't feel good doing it.
Adrian, the answer is inside you.
No, doctor, the answer is inside you. If you told me, I would hear it, and then the answer would be inside me.
Okay, I'm sorry, but our time is up.
Okay, well, I'll see you Thursday.
No. Don't you remember? I'll be in Costa Rica.
Costa Rica?
Wait, real quick. Can we just talk about how dark it is right now in this therapist's office? Like, it looks like maybe it's the end of the day or something, but the lights aren't on. I have a very high priority on making sure my space is well lit, so that I get creeped out. Like, what are we doing in here? Why is it so dark? That's not the point of this video, but it stands out to me.
I've never been to Costa Rica.
No, Adrian, you're not coming. It's a vacation.
That reminds me of the movie What About Bob? Bob shows up at his therapist's vacation and wreaks a bunch of havoc.
Why didn't you tell me?
I did. I told you every week for the past month, but I guess you just blocked it out.
I blocked it out. No problem. We'll talk about it on Thursday.
It may seem a little bit over the top, but I've actually had this happen myself. Things like going on maternity leave, which I ended up taking twice, 4 months off for maternity leave, and clients just not remembering, and me, so it's like I'm telling you like 6 months in advance of maternity leave. I'll bring it up like once a month, and then when we get to the final like 2 months, I'm bringing it up every week. Here's your options. You can see another therapist. You can do da-da-da-da-da-da. And then it's like our last session. I'm going on maternity leave in 2 days, about to pop, and clients going, wait, you're leaving? I don't blame people for this. It's just such a human thing to kind of perceive your therapist as like living outside the bounds of kind of human experience. Like, almost because of the boundaries of the therapeutic relationship, we forget that our therapist is a real person who takes vacation and goes on maternity leave and, you know, gets sick and has to call in sick. And so when it happens, we're like, what? And it just does not compute. This therapist seems very patient about it, though, even though he's clearly also a little bit impatient about it.
You know, I've been reading about this sniper. It's really terrifying.
The police think it's union related.
I'm kind of getting distracted because the orientation of their chairs is really interesting to me. They're both kind of facing this way. Did you see that? Let's talk about this for a second, because chair orientation is a thing that therapists talk about. I don't put my chairs straight on because that can start to feel a little bit too intense. So I do angle things a little bit, but they're kind of like, we're kind of like, I don't know. It kind of feels a little strange. Like there wants to be like a third chair and there's 3 people having a conversation. I don't know what to make of that. I think if I were a client in this situation, I'd be like, excuse me, can I scooch my chair a little bit?
It was something that I had to, sorry, can't concentrate. What is that noise?
That's the white noise machine. We've always had it here.
No, this one's different.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other one broke. It's just a newer model, but it's the same.
No, the old one went shh, and this one goes shh.
Okay, 2 things with this moment. One, we don't put white noise machines next to our chair because then we wouldn't really hear. The white noise machine goes outside the door so that anyone in the hallway hears the white noise machine instead of the people inside talking. The writers kind of missed it on that one. But that said, this moment, it does happen with clients. Regardless of who we are as humans, it's so easy to get distracted by other things, especially when the topic at hand is something that's really difficult to talk about. Again, the therapist, though, is very gracious about it, but also matter of fact. Like, he doesn't just kind of let Monk kind of push him over. Okay, let's keep going.
Is that better?
No.
All right, Adrian, would you like me to try to get the old machine fixed?
That'd be great. Thank you.
That is a very gracious therapist. There's kind of a fine balance that you have to walk through with your clients where sometimes you might kind of appease some sort of mental health concern. So do you say, oh, yeah, so sorry, let me try to help you feel more comfortable by addressing it on my end? Or do you say, That's tough, Monk. What are you going to do about it? Here's one of many situations in life that's uncomfortable for you. Can we work through it? So it's definitely up to the therapist's discretion to decide which items are worth pushing into versus letting go. But you definitely don't want to just sort of enable all the time and always just kind of accommodate everything when it might potentially just be feeding back into somebody's potential dysfunction.
What would you do if you had $1 million?
I'd hire you full time and keep you on retainer 24/7. Maybe I'd buy you a house right next to mine so I could just drop in anytime. This is fun. What would you do with $1 million?
Buy an island, the middle of nowhere.
So we would do our sessions over the phone?
Well, see this island, in my mind, no phone service.
I guess I'd have to buy a boat.
See, that's funny because the island, in my fantasy, no dock.
Well, may the best man win.
Okay, I don't know how I feel about that scene. Obviously, it's funny to watch. It's interesting. It's kind of cheeky here. Monk saying, oh, this is a fun game. What would you do if you got $10 million? And that's not so unusual for a client to kind of banter a little bit like that. I would usually give a much more kind of like a, I'm going to play into your banter, but I'm not really going to answer your question type answer. It feels like the therapist is actually responding to the question a little bit while being a little bit cheeky about it, but we're also getting clued in maybe a little bit more than I think is appropriate about this therapist's fantasy to get away from Monk, really, because it's clear now. We've seen this twice in this video where Monk is saying like he wants to see his therapist more often than he already does, and the therapist here is kind of saying, I want to get away from you. This is a great opportunity to set boundaries. So as a therapist, if you're noticing you're getting pulled in too much, you feel like you need space from your client, it's often whatever is to the advantage of the therapist, in my opinion, is also to the advantage of the client. So here Monk is getting maybe overly invested in his therapeutic relationship, and he needs to learn how to live his life when his therapist is also not there all the time 24/7. How can we equip you to be fine to wait until the next time we meet? That would be something that both of them probably would benefit from.
Do you love your job?
Do I love my job? Yeah, no, not all the time, but most of the time, yeah, I love my job. Why? What's going on?
This moment where Monk asks the therapist a personal question, when I was first taught in my training, it was sort of like, you don't ever answer these questions because then you're going to get into this weird, like, I don't know, dynamic where your client is getting to know you. So instead you say like, why is it that you want to ask me about my job? What's really going on? But what I've learned over time is when you have that kind of reaction, it makes you look really cagey and seem like you have something to hide. You don't want to go too far the other way of saying like, let me tell you all about my job and let's spend 5 minutes talking about it. If you can offer some genuine, but a little bit like detached response of like, yeah, I like my job good enough. Yeah, why, what's up? What's going on with you? And just bring it right back. That tends to be successful. So I think the therapist played that really well. Let's carry on.
I understand. Now you're feeling unfulfilled.
It's all the same. Crime scene, witness, suspect, question,
Okay,
answer.
this is perfectly normal, Adrian. No job can completely satisfy anyone. There is more to life than just working.
I know that.
Let me finish. Or cleaning.
Oh.
Maybe you should take up a hobby.
That was an interesting play. I mean, we're starting to see kind of the banter that comes with like really long-term therapy. I mean, if you're in session number 2 or 3 with a client, I would not talk to them like this. But on the one hand, I'm kind of hearing some strategies that are like, oh, he's interrupting. He's kind of jumping to conclusions. But maybe it's because they've been working together long enough that he kind of knows like, okay, I'm just going to cut through and cut to the chase because I already see where this is going. For clients that I have been working with for like years and years, you can kind of interact differently. We'll see how Monk does with this strategy.
Hobby?
Yes, a hobby. It's great therapy. You know, I recently took up ballroom dancing.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Madeline, she doesn't love it as much as I do, so a lot of the time when I go to class, I don't have a partner.
I'm not going to dance with you, Dr. Kroger. Don't make me dance with you, Dr. Kroger.
No, Adrian, I am not suggesting...
I can't dance with you, Dr. Kroger.
I didn't ask you to dance with me, Adrian. I was talking about a different hobby.
Not dancing.
Not dancing.
Okay, that was more self-disclosure than I would probably ever feel comfortable sharing. I wouldn't be sharing like, I recently took up ballroom dancing. Maybe Monk could use a hobby, maybe you're onto something, but let's not tell Monk about your hobbies and then also how your spouse is not into the hobby with you. It kind of got missed there with the overindulgence in self-disclosure. I don't see how that could have benefited Monk to hear all of that. Well, I enjoyed watching these therapy scenes. It's very endearing to see this kind of like therapeutic relationship grow old together. I think this highlight reel of therapy scenes was not emphasizing, of course, like what therapeutic strategies is this therapist using to help Monk overcome his OCD behaviors, but it is emphasizing their kind of therapeutic relationship together. It's clear that, at least the way the writers wrote the show, that there's an abundance of trust in this relationship, even with its like sticky points, and that's really what matters the most. Clearly, Monk cherishes this relationship so much with his therapist, even if the therapist let us in a little bit too much on his desire to like get away from Monk sometimes. If you are interested in watching Monk, it's available on a few different services. You can stream it on Peacock. I think you can also get it through Amazon Prime. I'll link to those different places below. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform and so much more. If you'd like to check out Therapy Notes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. It was fun to go back and kind of see this throwback. I guess it's like getting kind of retro now. It's wild to think that 2002 was over 21 years ago. Wow. Let me know in the comments if there are any reactions you had that I didn't notice, because that's something I also really enjoy in these videos, is like going back and seeing how other people respond to my response. Like, oh, Marie, you didn't catch this part. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.